If you're a survivor of violence and are ready to get control of your life again, you're in the right place at the right time. This is the Survivors to Thrivers podcast with your host, Cranford Blackman. Hello everyone, welcome back to the LaBCaF Survivors to Thrivers podcast. I'm Cranford Blackman, your host and the creator of the LaBCaF Self-Protection System. I was actually going to talk about a different topic for this episode. I was going to talk about some awareness methods and exercises you can use to improve your everyday awareness. Now that's an important topic, so I will be coming back to it in a different episode. So don't worry, it is coming. You know, one of the things that I've learned in my life is that when a message shows up in a really big way in your life, you need to follow it. And when I say you, I mean me. I need to follow it. You know, it doesn't matter whether you think those messages come from God or angels, the universe, your subconscious, wherever it comes from, and whatever you or I label it, when those messages of inspiration come, it's time to listen. You know, we hear it from all the big thinkers of the world, whether it's Jack Canfield or Lisa Nichols, Tony Robbins, Napoleon Hill, Michael Beckwith, the leaders of all the world's religions. They tell us when the Spirit calls, it's best to answer. And it's better if you answer quickly, right? So that's what I'm doing with this episode. And so, Spirit, here I am doing it. Here's a podcast with a strange perspective. What I want to do, I want to talk some of you out of listening to and reading my LaBCaF material. Weird, right? I know, but that's what the message was for me, and so here it is. You know, I like to believe that my program is for everyone. I mean, I built it that way. I made it to work for you, whether you're young or old, whether you're a man or woman, wealthy or poor, whether you're super fit or a couch potato, if all your body parts are working right, or if you have physical challenges. I made it to work for every person. But it won't, will it? It could, but it won't work for every person. It's kind of like a car, you know, a regular everyday car that anyone could drive safely and with no problems. It has power steering and an automatic transmission and many safety features, meaning it's safe to drive. Just like my program, that car is built for practically everyone to be able to drive it effectively and safely. And yet some people will drive that car without putting oil in it, or even gas sometimes. They won't wear their seatbelts. Some of them will let their children stand up in the seats rather than putting them in a child seat. Some won't wash their windshield so that they can see where they're going, or check and replace their windshield wipers so that when it rains they can still see. Some will even ignore the strange sounds they hear coming from their car, from under the body or from the engine. And you know, there's also those who will choose to drive that vehicle while using their phone or even reading a book. No, really, I've seen people doing that, driving down the road with a book or a magazine on the steering wheel reading it while they drive. That's crazy, right? And what about those people who drive that car after drinking alcohol or taking any of 100 other products that can cause distorted perceptions or slow their reaction times, whether it's a legal something or an illegal something? If it affects your perceptions and your reactions, that's not so good. That car really is built for anyone to use it effectively and safely, but some people are just not ready to drive the way that car was meant to be driven. Some people are not willing to maintain that car so that it will keep working and keep working safely. You know, as I mentioned in the last episode, you can only learn if you're ready to learn. And I want to add something to that. Let me say it this way. You can only act appropriately and effectively if you are prepared to act appropriately and effectively. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more just so you understand what I'm saying in a bit. I heard a great comment the other day that put into words an understanding that I and probably many of you already have. It goes like this. It's better to be prepared for opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity that you're not prepared for. Now, as you know, I look at learning to be prosperous and financially secure as part of self-protection. But there's also the part where you must take care of yourself when in a physically dangerous situation. That means in that bit of wisdom about being prepared, we can switch the word opportunity out for dangerous incident, and it will still be extremely accurate. So then it would sound like this. It's better to be prepared for a dangerous incident and not have one than to have a dangerous incident that you're unprepared for. Same thing. I mean, it means the same. It really is just better to be prepared. So whether it's an opportunity or a dangerous situation that you're preparing for, you can only be prepared for it if you choose to prepare yourself. If you are willing to learn and to practice what you learn. If you are ready to be ready. After teaching my programs in person for the last 2 years, I see some very interesting ways of being and beliefs in the 2 categories of people that I speak to and I teach. Those 2 categories are 1, those who have experienced violence in their lives, and 2, those who haven't. And I see pretty clearly the reasons in both groups as to why they are interested in taking my program and why they might think it's not for them. Now, I'm only including people that I've talked to who have actually listened to me and know what I'm talking about. So let's talk about those people who have not experienced violence. Now, I'm very happy for them, and I hope they never experience violence or tragedy of any kind in their life. Now, we know that statistics say that's not very likely. We all deal with some violence and tragedy in our lives. And the best we can do is hope to minimize it and avoid as much of it as possible. So what are the reasons these people have for their interest or lack of interest in a program built specifically to keep them from experiencing violence, or at least to reduce the odds of it? All right, first, why they think they don't need it. They say things to me like, well, I live in a safe neighborhood, or the police, fire department, and rescue squad are there to take care of us. Or, well, I've never had a problem before. That's a good one, right? Or things like, my husband, my dad, my brother, they're going to take care of me. My husband's a police officer. Or my uncle's in the military. The thing that shocks me is that those people really believe that those are good answers why they don't need it. I wonder, have they watched the news? Have they seen the things that happen in safe, I'm doing air quotes with my fingers here, safe neighborhoods? When the police show up, it's after something happened, right? I mean, I love the police. I used to be one. But the police don't show up until you call them. And, even if you do have a family member or a neighbor who's a police or an infantry soldier or any of that, they're not always there, are they? It's difficult for me to hear those things. It's difficult for me to respond pleasantly because some of those answers are just so crazy to me. All right, number 2, why they just don't want to do it. The things that I've heard is, I don't have time for this. I'm too busy. I shouldn't have to worry about protecting myself, and I don't have the money for this. All right, let me talk about a few of those. I don't have time for this. How do you not have time to learn how to take care of yourself? I understand that my programs, the paid programs, are kind of lengthy, but are the podcasts? No. Are the articles? No. Well, some of them are kind of long, but you can read them when you want, right? So there is time to learn stuff. And I shouldn't have to learn to protect myself. That's one of those that really confuses me too. I agree you shouldn't have to learn to protect yourself. You should be safe anywhere. But that's a little bit of a Pollyanna view, isn't it? I hear people say, you shouldn't have to teach a woman to stop a rapist. You should teach men not to rape. Well, that's good, fine, and dandy, but I'm guessing that those same people who say that, I wonder if they donate their money to groups to teach people not to steal, or do they go ahead and pay for locks to put on their doors, windows, and an alarm system? And I'm not being harsh with them. All I'm saying is that it would be great if we could get criminals to not be criminals. If we could select them, figure out who they are, put them in special programs to teach them good, positive, honest ways of being. But that's not realistic, is it? It's not. So it really is more important for the rest of us to learn how to protect ourselves and to be safe. I don't have the money for this. That's a tough one for me too. Because again, you're listening to a podcast that costs how much? That's right, nothing. If you've been to the website, you've read articles that explain how to do a lot. And how much did they cost? Nothing. So there are ways of learning to be safer that are free. Even my pay-for programs are very reasonable. When it comes to learning how to protect yourself, your children, your spouse, your home, that's pretty important stuff. It's worth putting some time and effort into. Now, in that same category, the people who have had no violence in their lives, there are also people who definitely want to learn. And what are their reasons? Why do they want to jump on this sort of thing? Well, it may be because they watch the news and they have realized that bad things can happen no matter where you are or who you are. Sometimes violent things just happen to random people for reasons we can't even comprehend. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be scared all the time in every place you go to. One of my goals in teaching this program and creating it is so that you can be out and about and not be afraid because you're more self-confident. You have a greater understanding of what your capabilities are, of the tools that are around you that you can use to protect yourself, to hide, to escape, to stop an attacker. I don't want anyone to think that because there's danger everywhere that you should be afraid. There's danger everywhere in your house. Slip, fall, broken glass. There's always some kind of danger. So the goal isn't to be afraid all the time. It's to be self-empowered, knowing that you can take care of yourself. And yet still, we have to know that sometimes we just might end up at the store that gets robbed. We might just be at the marathon where the terrorists attack. We might be anywhere that anything happens. And remember, self-protection is not just about crime. A tornado touches down where a tornado touches down, whether you're there or not. Right? When the hurricane comes, the hurricane comes. When the apartment fire happens, it happens. All right, the second reason why people with no violence in their life or no experience of violence might want to do this. Some of them have had people in their life, friends or family members, that have had violent things happen to them. So they have seen the consequences of the violence. They've seen the physical injuries. They've seen the emotional pain and the psychological scars that are left after something terrible like that. And they don't want to let that happen to them. Even though they may not have personally experienced violence, they still want to learn, which is great. And the other thing that they can do with that is to teach their children. And I've actually taught people whose specific goal was to be able to teach their children and their grandchildren these ways of being safe that no one had taught them before. It's tough for a mom or dad to teach their children these incredible safety skills if no one has taught them. So it's always very exciting for me to meet grandparents or parents who are learning my program so that they can pass it down along through generations. So that's one category. Now, let's look at those people who have experienced violence or disaster in their personal lives. Why would someone want to learn a program that teaches self-protection in any situation? For them is pretty obvious, right? I don't want what happened to me to ever happen again. What else? I don't want what happened to me to ever happen to my spouse or my children or my mom and so on. That choice is simple, and for them, the cost in time and money is well worth it. But now this other side of it is kind of hard to grasp, that there are people who are violent survivors who do not want to participate in such a program as mine. Well, there are no other programs like mine, but you know what I'm saying. So it's hard to believe that there are those people, but surely enough, there are. And as far as I can figure it, their reasons for not wanting to learn about self-protection to stop what has happened to them before from ever happening again, those reasons fall into two areas. Either one, it's something about their mental emotional state, or 2, their environmental state. So what do I mean by that? The psychological emotional reasons, which no one really comes right out and says, are heartbreaking. The things like, I'm not smart enough for this, or I'm just too scared to try something new, or a terrible one that says, I'm not worthy. That's a tough one. Or when they say or believe something as crazy as, well, I must have deserved what happened to me, or it wouldn't have happened to me, that I caused what happened. And another really sad one is that it doesn't matter what I do, I will always be vulnerable. Those reasons get wedged in someone's mind, or even worse, in their heart, and they just can't shake it. It makes me want to scream at the top of my lungs saying, none of those are true. But screaming at a survivor of violence, even if you have good intentions, is really a bad thing to do. I just don't know how to help someone who chooses, whether it's consciously or not, to remain in a state of being a victim, of allowing things to happen to them because it's fate or whatever. I can help greatly, but only when somebody is ready to be helped, ready to learn, and to be fully accountable for their own healing, growth, and safety. The environmental reasons, on the other hand, I can work with, or at least partially. So here's 4 that I put together. 1, I can't get to the class. That's reasonable, right? So depending on where I have the class, maybe they can get there, maybe they live too far away. Well, the way I would argue that is we do community classes. We go to communities and teach, to churches, to schools, to businesses. But there's also podcasts like this and the articles that we do and the upcoming online programs we'll be doing. More to come on that. Be sure you're subscribed at LaBCaF.com to hear about those. Number 2, I don't have time for the classes. Well, again, we make the articles and the podcast easy to download. You can do them whenever you want to do them, before you go to bed, while you're driving. Now that's for the podcast, not for the articles. So while you're sitting in the doctor's office or wherever, you can be learning. And of course, again, we also have the online programs, which will be downloadable so you can do them when and where you want to. Okay, another one. I can't afford the class. What did we talk about a minute ago? The articles are free. The podcasts are free. And, here's where I have a challenge with this. I've offered free programs to people and groups of people. And it's amazing that I have yet to have someone accept my offer of a free program. I mean the entire program. The big expensive program that I teach in person. My 3-day seminar class. No takers, for free. It amazes me. And not only that, there's always ways to pay for something. One of the ways that I offer scholarships to our programs is to tell people, if you organize a class in your community and have at least X number of people show up, then your class is free. So there really are ways to do it. I don't have enough money is not an excuse to not learn how to protect yourself. And the last one is I can't do it because I'm still in a dangerous environment. My spouse is dangerous or violent towards me. And I'm sorry to say, but I don't know a way out of that one. I really hope that those people just get out of the situation, but I know it's not always that easy. So I wish I had something for that one. As you can see, all of these environmental things I can work with. I've tried to make things possible for all of those people to have access to classes no matter where they are, no matter how much they make. You can learn to be safer if you choose. Whether I like it or not, some people will just refuse to grow. You've probably got somebody like that in your life. Someone you've tried to help. You've tried to support them, to teach them, or to guide them, and yet they refuse to move forward. You might even fall into that category sometimes yourself. I know I do. To be absolutely honest, we all do that at one time or another. Now, the difference is, do we stay in it or do we recognize it and get out of it? What I need for you to do now is to decide which group you fall into. And if you don't like the one you fall into, do you want to be in the group that is determined to find a way to be better, to be safer, to be more prosperous? Or the group that says, fate will determine this for me. I'm just going to ride along and see what happens no matter how awful or bad it gets. So here are some of the things you look at. Do you buy educational books and DVDs or online programs only to push them to the side because there are more important things going on, like watching The Bachelor or Dancing with the Stars? Or are you the kind of person that sees a need in your life, finds a solution, and then latches onto that bull ride until you've learned everything you can? Are you the kind of person who drives forward until you achieve whatever it is you're pursuing? If you answered those questions quickly, I want you to stop for a few minutes and I want you to reevaluate. Why? Because if you answered too quickly, either one, you're really certain of who you are, or two, you're really certain of who you want to be, and so that's what you said, even though you might act and live a different way. I know this episode may not be altogether easy, but you need to be clear on what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. Whether it's a class, whether it's a book, whether it's listening to a podcast, reading an article, asking someone for help. I'm not judging you on this, and no one else needs to hear your answers to these questions. So it really is about you and for you. If you're the kind of person who will only half-heartedly listen or study, then you're setting yourself up for some emotional and psychological challenges, and maybe even some physical dangers. The same is true if you're willing to listen and study, but not consciously put what you learn into action. It's sort of like when you didn't make it to the interview for your dream job, the one that you knew you were qualified for, that you were their top candidate. You had this in the bag. And you didn't make it because you skipped fueling up your car to avoid missing your favorite TV show the night before. Think of the guilt and the stress that comes with knowing that you had what you wanted within your grasp, but blew it over something inconsequential. If you don't choose to be proactive in learning, if you don't choose to be responsible for your circumstances, if you don't believe your current situation is a result of your past choices and actions, or your lack of choosing and lack of actions, if you don't believe you can direct where you and your family will be tomorrow, if you'd rather ride the negative energy of people's pity instead of choosing to do the work of climbing back into the world of self-esteem and personal pride, then maybe you're not quite ready for the LaBCaF stuff. I hope you will be. And I hope it will be sooner than later. But the LaBCaF program requires that you get engaged with the information you receive. You are the only one who can make your life better, who can create the life you want, the safe life, the happy life, the prosperous life. I get that I'm asking you to make some tough choices, to say that you're going to own your life and responsibility for the things that have happened in the past. It's tough. I know it is. But the good things are generally worth working for, right? Now, maybe right now you're angry with me for even suggesting that your past actions are part of why you are where you are right now. If you don't like where you are right now. Maybe you're saying that I just don't know your circumstances. And if I did, I'd be a little bit more understanding. Well, then you might just have to stay angry with me. If you believe all your challenges and problems were because of other people, that it's their fault, not yours, then you probably also believe that someone else must fix your life for you. But the uncomfortable truth is this: it is only you that can fix your life. It is only you that can make you strong. It is only you who you can always be certain of and can always rely on if you choose to be that kind of person. And you can be that kind of person. It's easy for us to think we are the exception to life, that our problems are awful, and that no one can understand what our life has been like. But if you look around and learn about some of the incredibly successful people who are admired by their family, their community, and even the world, many of them have come from terrible, terrible circumstances. Some of them are from violent homes. Many have experienced abuse and loss. Some have been homeless, living in horrible poverty. It is possible to climb back into the light and to create a better life for you and those you love. But you must choose to do it. And then you must act with courage and determination. You must choose to be the hero of your own story. That's right, I keep saying must. It's a have to. You can't let this ride on the shoulders of someone else or on fate. You have to choose it. If you're not ready or willing to do that, then neither my program nor any other could help you. It would only be stressful for you as you constantly see what you could do, even as you refuse to do those things and move forward into success. However, if you are ready to own every part of your life, all of the circumstances, the good and the bad, well, with my program, I can provide you with a sail, a rudder, and oars to help you get where you want to go, regardless of which way the winds of fate blow. You know, I want everyone to be in that group, the one that's ready to move forward, the one that's ready to work, the one that's looking for a rudder and the oars to get where they want to go. But I know that's not the case. Everyone is not in that group. The responsibility and the work required to not be a victim of circumstances or of crime is more than some people are willing to take on. For those poor souls, the LaBCaF programs are probably not a good fit. When they are ready, it will be a good fit. For everyone who is ready, it's a great fit. And I will be here ready and willing to help them and you move into being more courageous, safer, more prosperous, and happier. But it will be you who makes that happen, not me. I can only provide the tools for you to get there. I believe in you, and you should believe in yourself. You are far more powerful than you know. Now, since we are a community, we help each other, right? So to help others in the LaBCaF tribal community, I would really like to hear from you in the comments below or via email at cranford@labcaf.com. I would absolutely love it if you would share a little bit of how you were able to get past your challenges so that you could start climbing back into the light of personal growth and recovery. That story that you share might be the very words that another listener needs to finally believe in themselves, to finally believe that they can climb out of the darkness they were left in by violence or violation in their life. So please share your story to help the millions of other survivors who are not sure that they can climb out of the darkness, to show them it is possible and that there is a way. So thank you in advance for sharing and for connecting with the LaBCaF tribe. So until next time, as we keep moving from survivors to thrivers, this is Cranford Blackman reminding you to stay safe and stay strong. To make sure you never miss an episode of Survivors to Thrivers podcast, subscribe at labcaf.com.